Before, during and after the menopause is one of the most challenging times in our lives. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what's going on with our hormones and what we can do to balance our hormones and therefore improve our chances of losing weight. Hello fam, and welcome to my channel. My name's Melissa Neal, and this channel is all about helping you, if you're a woman over 40 or like me over 50, get in great shape. And one of the things that we need to do in order to get in great shape is actually get our hormones in check. I'm going to take you through what the different stages before, during and after the menopause are, how they impact on our hormones and therefore our weight, and then I'm going to talk about what we can do about it. If you're anything like me, and I'm going through the menopause at the moment, I'm actually perimenopausal, so I'm still getting a menstrual cycle. It's a real struggle at the moment, isn't it? Physically and mentally. We've got everything going on. And did you know this is the biggest change that we have in our hormones since puberty? So it even surpasses sort of childbirth and pregnancy. So it's a really challenging time for us. We shouldn't underestimate that and beat ourselves up about it. So before we actually come up to the menopause, so it's called early perimenopause, and that starts in our 30s and 40s. Our hormones actually start to go out of balance then. And so what can happen is we can have a drop in progesterone. And what that means is some women are much more likely to be estrogen dominant at this time. It's not a good idea to actually be eating foods like tofu or soya mince products, that kind of thing, because they can actually make your estrogen dominance worse. The other thing that can happen is the premenstrual syndrome can actually get a lot worse in this stage in life. So if you're really suffering from your menstrual cycle and, you know, all the things that go with that, that's really common to happen at this stage. So then we go into something called the late perimenopause, and that's when our hormones like estrogen and progesterone, they start depleting, and so they're kind of all over the place and really out of balance. And all these changes have a massive impact on our body's ability to control our weight. So it's things like cortisol, we can suffer from adrenal fatigue, we can have thyroid issues. They can all start to kick in and we can start to have symptoms. So the hot flashes, the brain fog, the not sleeping at night, that can all start to happen at this point. And it not only affects us physically, but it actually affects us mentally as well. Then the next stage is when our period stops altogether, and that's the menopause. And by that time, those hormones like estrogen and progesterone, they have kind of really depleted. But hopefully by now, things have started to settle down and we're suffering less with all those symptoms around the perimenopause. And then finally, there's the sort of post-menopause. It's a year or two after your periods have stopped and everything starts to settle down and you're now going through the aging process. So how do these stages of menopause actually impact on our bodies and our ability to lose weight? Well, what happens when all these hormones are out of sync? Hormones like cortisol that I've just described can cause adrenal fatigue. Other hormones in our bodies are all starting to go out of sync. And what that means for each stage is that our metabolism has actually decreased. And that's because these hormones have actually depleted, or in the early stages, they're really out of sync. So what can we do about it? Well, I'm going to talk about 3 areas that we need to look at in terms of balancing our hormones. And that's eating correctly, that's exercising correctly, and looking at stress, sleep and rest. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is eating correctly. And what's really, really important to balance our hormones is actually to have a high protein diet. And if you watch any of my videos, I talk about this a lot, but it's not just for weight loss, it is actually for balancing our hormones. Lots of lovely lean protein is really going to help us, but not only lean protein, protein with fats is also going to help us. So some of the lean protein that I'm talking about is chicken, fish, tofu if you don't have estrogen dominance. Greek yogurt is fantastic. Beans, pulses, lentils, they're all absolutely fantastic sources of protein. And then you've got sort of more oily kind of fatty sources of protein. So you've got eggs and oily fish. And oily fish actually has lots of good healthy fats which we also need to balance our hormones. And it's really important to get those good fats in. So I know, for example, I eat oily fish pretty much every day just to help keep my hormones in check. But other options include avocado, olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oil is absolutely fantastic, and then nuts and the pure nut butters that don't have added sugar and added oils. Would it surprise you to know that we actually need carbohydrates to balance our hormones? Because I talked about adrenal fatigue, didn't I, earlier on? Some of the symptoms of adrenal fatigue are not being able to sleep at night, extreme tiredness, needing a hit of sugar or coffee to get you through the day. They can be some of the signs. And when we've got the adrenal fatigue, we actually need carbohydrates to help balance our hormones. Your body needs that energy to be able to mend itself and get back to normal. But not just people with adrenal fatigue, everybody, we all need carbohydrates. And I'm a big fan of actually having a healthy whole foods balanced diet, which means including carbohydrates. And we don't have to go mad. Good sources of carbohydrates are sweet potato, rice, oatmeal, and whole grains. So I'm going to go into exercising for hormone health. Now, the important thing here is to recognise that we shouldn't be over exercising before, during and after menopause, because that's actually going to do more harm than good. But what we do need to be doing is strength training, and strength training is actually going to help us build metabolism that we've lost with this aging process, with the hormones. We've kind of lost a lot of muscle mass, and so what we need to do is build it back up through a really good strength training program. And you know, you don't have to do a lot of it. 3 or 4 times a week for between 30 minutes and 60 minutes is absolutely ideal. But what we do need to do is actually cut down on the amount of cardiovascular exercise we're doing. So I'm not talking about walking. Walking is absolutely fantastic, and you can do that as much as you like. What we can end up doing is putting too much pressure on our bodies if we do too much cardio, because again, it's going to put our hormones out of balance by having those raised cortisol levels for hours and hours of cardio, and then we're actually going to cause more fatigue if we do too much cardio. So what do I mean by too much cardio? Well, anything over about 30 minutes is really too much, unless we're talking about walking. So if we're talking about running, going on the treadmill, using any kind of cardio equipment that you have in the gym, you really need to keep that down to less than 30 minutes, and potentially even cut it out altogether if you are suffering from something like adrenal fatigue or you have a thyroid issue, because doing too much cardio exercise, very intense cardio exercise, when you've got conditions like hypothyroidism or adrenal fatigue, is actually going to do you a lot more harm than good, because what you need to be doing is getting in rest. And if you're wondering about a diet and exercise plan that actually addresses all these hormonal issues, I do run programs for women over 40, which include meal plans. They include the exercise plans that I've been talking about. So I will link that in the description and you can take a look at that. And that leads me on nicely to the other thing that I'm going to talk about, which is 3 things kind of grouped together. And that's getting enough sleep, rest, and reducing your stress levels. I can't tell you how important this is. And for me personally, it's something that I've been looking at in my own life to try and get better at that. Because believe it or not, we need to work at it, don't we, if we want to get more sleep? Because we're in a time of life when it's actually much more difficult to get sleep, isn't it? So some of the techniques that I recommend that you can employ, not having too much tech 30 minutes before bed is really going to help. So getting off your phone, your iPad or any computer 30 minutes before bed, because that's way too stimulating for our brain and it makes it really difficult to sleep. Then it's about using some relaxation techniques. So it might be that you do meditation or mindfulness before you go to bed. I use a weighted blanket, which I find really helpful. And make your bedroom a bit of a sanctuary, light a candle, make sure that it's clean of clutter and a really calming environment. And the other aspect is rest. Getting enough rest is really important. I talked about it when we're talking about exercise, getting enough rest days, but also generally getting enough rest is so important for our hormone balance. And again, it's using those relaxation techniques, making sure that you're taking a break in the day, not doing too much in your lives, because I know many women in this age category, we could be caring for older parents, we still have children or teenagers that we look after, we're looking after the family, we're trying to work, and sometimes we're actually just running ourselves ragged. What the danger is that we can have burnout and that adrenal fatigue that I talked about. So it's really important that we take some me time and some rest time, that we step away from some of those duties that we do have in our lives. And sometimes that might mean actually reassessing everything so you can make your rest time a priority. And that's what I did in my own life. And then the other aspect is actually reducing your stress levels. So, I know a lot of women that have stressful jobs. You might have a lot of stress in your life, and it's about looking at that, addressing that, and putting in place some strategies that you can actually reduce your stress levels. It might mean looking at getting help from outside. It might mean that you need to think about having something like coaching or therapy to help you do that, or joining a group. That can be really helpful. Those relaxation techniques are really helpful. And actually assessing your life, looking at where the pinch points are and doing something about that. And do let me know in the comments section if coming up to, during and after the menopause, you have found it difficult, both with your weight loss, your health and your overall mental well-being. I would love to hear from you. And if you'd like me to make more videos on this topic, then I'd love to do that if that's what you want to hear from me. And if you like this video, please do give it the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you get the bell notifications and you're notified when my videos first drop. And do also give me a follow on TikTok and Instagram.